Greetings, this is Mark Anderson for Kellogg Community College, and we are going to look at some binomial cubics, and we can factor them. And in fact, I like to call them under a little nickname called SOPS, which is SOPS. And what I'm going to try to show you and explain is that if you have the sum of cubes or the difference of cubes, what we can do is factor them into an a plus b and then an a squared minus ab plus b squared pattern, or this a minus b and the a squared plus ab plus b squared pattern. Now, I'll have you note a couple things. First of all, you'll note that this and this are not the same. Notice that your subtraction and this are opposites. That's important to note. In these trinomials, the a squareds are always, and b squared is always positive because it is being squared. So what I want to try to identify is that we are going to call this the a-b SOPS pattern. What we're going to do with our a is we're going to take the cubic root of our first term. So we look at our first term of the problem and we take the cubic root of it. And the cubic root of x cubed is going to be, in this case, x. So our a is going to be x. Then what we do for our b is we take the cubic root of the second term. Cubic root of the second term, this is the cubic root of 27, is going to be 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And this makes our binomial, our first binomial. And this is now filling out and finishing this first part. Now what I need after that is the SOPS part, this way to remember how to get this trinomial. Now the first S stands for the square of a. So I take my a term and square it, x squared. OP is an abbreviation for opposite product of AB. So I take my two terms, my x and 3, I multiply them together to get 3x, and then I take the opposite product, which is negative 3x. Then I take my last s, and instead of the square of a, I'm going to have the square of b, which means I take my 3 and make that into a 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. And that right there is my factored form. This is my factored form, and I will have to say, with the certainty of the books and problems I've given you, that this trinomial can no longer be factored. And we will look at factoring this using the quadratic formula and introduce some imaginary numbers, but don't worry about this trinomial. You can't go any further. Now what I want to do is I want to show you some more examples of these. So let's go on and do a couple of these here. Now in this case, notice this 64 is negative. So as we get my a and my b by taking the cubic roots of our x cubed and our negative 64, please remember that you can actually take a negative cubic root. You can't take a negative square root because that introduces our imaginary number system, but you can take the negative cubic root. So the cubic root of a, in this case, is going to be x, and my cubic root of negative 64 is going to be negative 4. And so what you may want to do is make sure that on your calculator you're typing in the negative 4 underneath the cubic roots. And a lot of your graphing calculators will have this under the math menu. So by typing in the negative 64, excuse me, I didn't mean to write 4. By typing in the negative 64, you will get the proper answer of negative 4. Okay, so there's my AB. Now I'm going to write out my SOPS. My square of the first term, which is x squared. My opposite product, which is going to be positive 4x. Note the symbol change. And then the square of the last, which is negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 16. That is my final answer for that factoring. Now what I want to show you using a different color is how my x minus 4 and x squared plus 4x plus 16, how that actually works. If I was to FOIL this, or not really FOIL, but more like a large distribution, I would multiply this x by everything here, here, and here, which gives me x cubed plus 4x squared plus 16x. And then I would multiply the negative 4 by all of these, which gives me a negative 4x squared, and this gives me negative 16x, and this gives me a total of negative 64. You can see by doing some simplification, this gives me an answer simplified into x cubed minus 64. So by showing you a little bit of an extended distribution problem, I'm now checking my answer to make sure that my dark blue is my my factored version of my black original problem. Okay, so now back to the work here. Let us go and look at the cubic root of 8x cubed, which in this case for my a term, oh, I'm still in light blue. I'll just keep it this way, is going to be 2x, and my cubic root of negative 1 is going to be negative 1. So here's my AB, and now I'm going to SOPS here. So I square this, which gives me 4x squared. My opposite product of the 2 times negative 1 is positive 2x. Multiply negative 1 times negative 1, which is 1. All right. I'll change to the darker color now, and I will go and adjust my screen here for the last 3 problems of this. So my first step is to take the cubic root of 125x cubed. In this case, I will, let's see, just make that down to a 5x for my a, and take the cubic root here, and that's going to make a negative 4y for my b. And here we go for my SOPS. This is going to be the square of 5x, so this is 25x squared. Opposite product of 5x and 4y is positive 20xy. And I square this term here, which is 16y squared, and that gives me my trinomial, part of the problem multiplied by my binomial, and if I did my distribution, it would come out to this. So there's my factorization of the problem. All right, for problem number 43, it's best to do a little bit of simplification. You'll notice that I can factor out an x cubed, and I can also factor out a 2. This is going to make inside this problem here 125x to the 6th power, since I reduced that power by 3 degrees. And then this is going to be a positive 64. Now, this 64 and the 125x to the 6th is cube rootable. Now, a little bit of going down the road a little bit here, the cubic root of 125 is 5. That's going to be my a term. I'm not going to write a above it. And the cubic root, though, of x to the 6th power is x squared. We're going to learn in later videos about dividing powers, and you'll see that dividing a power like this is going to reduce it by that amount. So it's not actually pulling 3 out to make 3. 6 taking the cubic root of x to the 6th is like dividing or multiplying by the 1/3. And again, to be learned a little bit later with our exponential chapter. Okay, we take the 64 cubic root and we get an answer of 4. So there's my AB, and now I'm going to rock my SOPS. My SOPS is going to be my square of this term, which is 25x to the 4th. Opposite product here, negative 20x squared, and then plus 16. And that right there is my final answer. The brackets are kind of unnecessary. So 2x cubed multiplied by 5x squared plus 4, and then the 25x to the 4th minus 20x squared plus 16. Alright, so for my final problem, which is going to deal more with this cube rooting of this number here, this is where I take the cubic root of x to the 9th, which is like dividing by 3 or multiplying to the 1/3 power. When we learn indexes, we'll talk more about that. This is going to be an a of x cubed, and this is going to be a b of y to the 4th. So there's my AB, and now if I square that, which raises it to the 6th power, my opposite product of x cubed y to the 4th, and then my square of the last term, which is y to the 8th, and that gives me my answer for that problem. Alright, well thank you very much for watching this work on the binomial cubics and factoring.